Still on the voter registration exercise, the OT Regional Minister Kwesi Owusu-Yeboah is calling on those who have not yet registered to, as a matter of democratic participation, register to be part of the change they so desire to see. According to the minister, sitting on the fence will only give the opportunity to a few to decide who leads them. The minister's comments come on the back of the relatively low turnout observed at most of the registration centers visited in the OT region, from where Peter Seni reports.
The OT Regional Minister Kwesi Owusu-Yeboah visited over 20 registration centers in Biakuye, Bwem, and yet to be created constituency for Sandrokofi, Akpafu, Lulubi, and Likpe areas. It was during his visit to registration centers in parts of the region that he took the opportunity to register at the EP Primary School at Apisokubi, his hometown. The minister is urging residents in the region to get registered and participate in the democratic process rather than sitting unconcerned, allowing just a few majority to decide who leads them.
If you're a citizen of a country and you don't register, it means that you have disqualified yourself from exercising your franchise when elections are being held. If you are not perhaps happy about certain developments in the country, I think the way to go about it is to register and to exercise your franchise in a manner that will enable you to get the government of your choice, a government that you believe is efficient, is competent, and will provide for you. But if you stay away, then I'm afraid it means that you have completely incapacitated yourself, you have deprived yourself of the right to influence the choice of leaders who make decisions for you. So I would strongly advise that whatever the frustration, the disenchantment, the disillusionment that anybody claims to have suffered, it is still important that they register so that they will have the capacity to exercise their franchise in the upcoming elections. It is a question of determining what political leadership you want. And if you are not on the register, you cannot exercise that franchise. So I would beg them that whatever their views, they should not deprive themselves of the right to determine who should rule this country, whether as a president or as a parliamentarian.
Apart from the relatively peaceful process, JoyNews can confirm the malfunctioning of some Kojak fingerprint scanners at Likpe, Akpafu, and at least 2 of the centers visited in the Biakuye constituency. This has slowed the process of registration considerably. It took these students at the Rara SHS Center over 10 minutes to get their fingers scanned to allow for further processing.
Oh, getting to about 10 minutes now.
10 minutes?
Yes.
So is that what is delaying the process?
That's the only thing which is delaying the process. We were asked to use shea butter. We have done it still. It's not capturing. So we needed to do it individually. With the individual fingers too, that one is giving us problem.
Some thermometers are also observed to have recorded as low as 28 degrees Celsius for adults. Peter Senu for JoyNews.
Let's go to the Upper West region now, and General Secretary of the governing New Patriotic Party, John Boydu, has accused the opposition NDC of trying to derail the voter registration exercise. He said though the exercise has largely been successful, the NDC has been busing non-Ghanaians and minors to partake. This, he said, sometimes generates heated arguments, delaying or disrupting the process. John Boydu made a statement when he toured some registration centers in the Upper West region. Correspondent Rafik Salam reports.
Accompanied by the Upper West Regional Minister, Dr. Hafiz bin Sali, and some regional executives, the General Secretary of the New Patriotic Party, John Boydu, toured some registration centers in the region. They visited some registration centers in the Wa Central, the Fema Bure Isa, and Sisala East constituencies. Registration in all the centers visited were orderly and peaceful, as some registration officials seem to be on a holiday. Mbonsuma Gordon is the presiding officer of Gulugamuni Registration Center.
For the first 2 days, we recorded a number of people. The first day we had 134. The next day we had 77. But starting from yesterday, the turnout has been very low. And since this morning when we came, we have not registered up to 10. But we are hoping that as the days go by, those who are yet to register, they will still come out in their numbers to register so that they will be able to exercise their voting rights come December 7.
The MPP General Secretary, after chit-chat with the registration officials, was impressed with what he saw. He commended the leadership of the region, especially political parties, religious leaders, and security agencies in the region for working to ensure that the process goes on without hitches.
Tolerance that we've seen as we went round, we all saw almost all the political party agents are together, they are comparing notes, things that come, they all share among themselves. And if you consider the exercise, we've been to close to 15 registration centers, and none of the center complain about shortage of material, breakdown of machines, or stampede of the people and all that. And it clearly tells you that the New Patriotic Party's foresightedness in supporting the Electoral Commission, that it is possible as a country for us to be able to have this registration exercise. It's been hugely successful. All the naysayers' arguments has fallen flat.
He, however, accused the opposition National Democratic Congress (NDC) of trying to derail the registration process by busing non-Ghanaians to registration centers to take part in the exercise.
The challenge that we see from other areas is as a result of the continuous cheating nature of the NDC, who always support people who are not Ghanaians to come and register, who want to bus minors to come and register, or want to bus people who are not residents or ordinary residents in the area. All the areas that there's nothing like that, it is peaceful, and you can see.
Reporting for JoyNews, Rafiq Salam. Wow.
And still on the voter registration exercise, renowned lawyer Chachu Chikata refused to argue the NDC review of the voter registration case decision made by the Electoral Commission. Remember that the NDC had said that it was going back to the Supreme Court for a review of the Supreme Court's decision on the compilation of a new voters register by the Electoral Commission. Well, they were in court today. Chachu Chikata represented the NDC, but he refused to argue the case. We'll go on to the phone lines later in this bulletin. Let's return to the voter registration exercise stories and take you to the court. Joseph Akable joins me on the line with an update on the story I brought to you about the NDC's lawyer, Chachu Chikata, refusing to argue the NDC's case in court on the review of the EC's decision as far as the compilation of the voter registration exercise is concerned. Joseph, why did Chachu Chikata refuse to argue in court this morning?
He made a point this morning when he got here. He says he was just given a document that had been filed by the Electoral Commission's lawyers.
Okay.
And so he needed time to study those documents and then argue on it. And so he asked the court for an adjournment. He also asked the court for more time to file some additional documents as well. The court went on recess, came back and responded that it is unable to grant the request for an adjournment, and making the point again that it can't grant the request to file the extra document because it's not supported by law. And again making the point that Mr. Chikata, after filing the review case, had actually asked the court that hears the matter earlier than usual. And the interesting point to make is that today is actually the last day the Supreme Court is sitting before it takes the legal vacation. And so they urge him to proceed to argue the review case. It was at that point that Mr. Chikata responded that he's unable to comply with the court order to argue the review case because he doesn't have enough time to study those documents, and he's not going to go ahead and move it. And so the Deputy Attorney General, Godfrey Adame, responded that Mr. Chikata is running from his own case, which he has brought to the court. And so he should move the case. And if he's not going to move the case, then the court should dismiss the case. The Supreme Court justices then proceeded to dismiss the case, holding that they have examined all the documents that they have found, and they've come to the conclusion that the case is not supported in terms of the review. A case for a review has not been made, and so just proceeding to dismiss the case.
And so that is it for the NDC as far as the challenge of this decision is concerned?
That is so. In terms of internal remedies, any remedy within Ghana, this is the final level. There's no other option unless they go out of the country.
Thank you very much. The minorities asking government to pull the brakes on plans to implement the Customs Amendment Bill banning the importation of salvage accident vehicles and second-hand cars more than 10 years old. The bill, which was passed in March, seeks to provide incentives for vehicle manufacturers that have set up plants in Ghana under the Ghana Automotive Manufacturing Development Program. Implementation is expected to begin in November, but ranking member on Parliament's Roads and Transport Committee, Kwame Adboja, says the law is not in the interest of the country. Joseph Opoku-Gatpo is our man in Parliament and he joins me on the line. Joseph, tell us a bit more about the debate on this law and what else has been happening in Parliament.
So Mr. Kwame Adboja, who is actually the ranking member on the Roads and Transport Committee of Parliament, has been addressing a media briefing here in Parliament House. And he says that eventually this move will end up benefiting companies that are not exactly involved in the assembling of brand new cars here in Ghana, but then are just also virtually importing vehicles and putting it together. And for him, it will lead to situations of loss of jobs because there are a lot of people who depend on accident and salvage vehicles in order to have their livelihoods. And additionally, he's very much convinced that even the vehicles that are being assembled in Ghana by companies like VW is something that the ordinary Ghanaian will not be able to afford. And so he wants that entire plan abandoned. He's also been raising concerns that when the law was actually approved in March this year, the indication was that when it comes to the modalities for its implementation, the Ministry of Transport was going to return with a legislative instrument, clearly spelling out which vehicles will actually not be permitted, which vehicles will be allowed in, but that hasn't been done. But they've gotten information that government is still going ahead to implement that particular legislation, which he thinks is out of place and is born out of bad faith. But he's gotten responses to his content from the Communications Minister, Esle, who has actually also been addressing the media here, insisting that the move will ensure that more sustainable jobs are created in Ghana. And so Ghanaians should be grateful for that particular move. We are expecting that at 2 o'clock, the Minister for Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, will be in Parliament to meet the Finance Committee as he defends his request for the suspension of the fiscal stability law, so that then government can spend in excess of 5% when it comes to budget deficit going forward, which he says is being invested in COVID-19 times.
Joseph, thank you very much for that update from Parliament. You're still watching JoyNews today with me, Amos. Time to take a breather. When we return, modalities for unemployment insurance schemes to be rolled out soon. We have updates from the Joy Business Jobs and Salaries Roundtable. Daryl is standing by with those details. Stay with us.
Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Business. My name is Daryl Kwao. The Deputy Minister of Employment, Bright Rekubobe, says his outfit has been engaged by the Finance Ministry to spell out the modalities for the unemployment insurance scheme. The Finance Minister, when he presented the media budget last week, indicated that government will set up an unemployment insurance scheme to support employees who have lost their jobs as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Speaking at the Joy Business Jobs and Salaries Roundtable today in Accra, Mr. Rekubobe also revealed the total number of people who have been made jobless as a result of the pandemic would be made known in the next couple of weeks.
That exists. And to that extent, we have some figures. You know, the law also mandates whichever institution, organization that is facing challenges, especially that of COVID, to, as it were, notify the Labor Department of how it intends to, if it has to even lay off people, if it has to go redundancy. So the burden is placed on the institution to get to the Labor Department with these kinds of information. To that extent, we have some, which, you know, I can churn out in the course of time. But that doesn't cover the entire country. It is those who have been able to get to the Labor Department and say, because of COVID, I have this challenge. So, you know, I am laying off some of my workers. Then we get the numbers. But beyond that, that's why I'm saying we have commissioned a holistic study and to be able to tell the story of the whole country and let the people know that these are the effects of the COVID unemployment, and that will come in the next couple of weeks.
Honorable.
Now, Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu has served notice his side of the House who pushed for a vote of censure to remove the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta for breach of the Fiscal Responsibility Act, which prohibits expenditure deficit beyond 5% of GDP. The bill is categorical that Parliament should pass a vote of censure to remove the Finance Minister if he overspends. Although the Finance Minister has admitted to this, he says COVID-19 related challenges have made it inevitable. The Finance Minister yesterday laid a paper in Parliament requesting a suspension of the act, but Haruna Idrisu says the minister must be sanctioned.
Also respectively now refer you to another quote. I just saw the Majority Leader lay a paper. Mr. Speaker, paragraph 444, very significant. How I wish the Minister for Finance himself is here. Request for approval of supplementary estimates, what I refer to as the variation in the figures, 109.9 billion. You are asking for 11.8 billion when your expenditure plan only accounts for 53 billion. We need explanations for that. But Mr. Speaker, respectively, let me refer you to paragraph 438. Unthinkable and unimaginable. Instead of doing what is needful under the Public Financial Management Act, the minister is coming for what he calls, and I quote, Mr. Speaker, from development thus far, it is clear that the fiscal rules of a deficit not exceeding 5% of GDP and a positive primary balance enshrined in the Fiscal Responsibility Act 2018, Act 982, are neither feasible nor attainable. When? Is it only for 2020 or is it only for 2020 or 2019, 2018, 2017? Were we within the regime of fiscal deficit? What he himself said in the law was that if he exceeds the fiscal deficit of 5%, he will go home and that he should be sanctioned. So to evade the sanctions, he has come that Parliament should suspend the law. We will not suspend the law. He will undergo the sanctions spelled out in the Fiscal Responsibility Act. He defined it for himself.
Well, the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has been responding to this. He says the move was inevitable.
I mean, if you read the act, it says what? Catastrophe, force majeure. Are you suggesting I could have prevented the pandemic? I'm just asking.
Do you think you could have cut other expenditures?
I could have avoided I could have avoided oil prices. And then what would you know, when you look at the care and the CAP program, what did we spend the money on? You know, the lockdown period, the average Ghanaian not being able to access food, lifeline, electricity. I mean, the issue of governance is to make sure that you keep your people alive. It's very easy to say cut it out until you see people on the street. This is a government that cares and will not compromise the lives of our people in any way. Thank you.
And that's it for business. We have a full bulletin coming up at 1 o'clock. Up next, sports.
Now in sports, the Azuma Nelson Youth Resource Center could be ready for handing over by August 31. The facility, which was expected to be ready in November 2018, failed to meet the 4-month deadline due to what engineers on site, Paul Atanga, describes as circumstances beyond their control. Mukhtar Nabila Abdullahi was there and filed this report.
About 2 years ago, the Minister for Youth and Sports, Isaac Esiama, was at this very facility to cut a short for the rehabilitation of the Azuma Nelson Sports Complex, rechristened the Azuma Nelson Youth Resource Center. This facility is expected to house nearly every single sporting discipline in the country, ranging from football, athletics, cricket, handball, basketball, and even a swimming pool. The facility does not only contain this, a computer center and a counseling center that is going to ensure that the youth who have psychological problems are attended to by psychologists or counselors who are going to be put in care of this facility. Initial period handed to contractor New Case Construction were 11 months. However, due to circumstances beyond their control, according to engineer on site Paul Atanga, is the reason why they were not able to complete within the period handed to them. 3 months ago, Joy Sports were here to have an update of work done so far and when work was going to be completed on this project.
So far, when we are done with the retaining wall, we can now work within the VIP. And then within 2-3 months, when the VIP is finishing, then it means we are handing over the project. Because as we are not working under the VIP, we are still working under the other stands. We are working on the pitch. So we are just, the VIP is now the determining factor. The moment we finish the VIP, it means we are handing over for Ghanaians. So when it is being approved, we start this month, barely 2-3 months, we should be handing over this project to Ghanaians to use.
3 months ago, the period for the completion of work appeared unknown. But now, there seems to be certainty of when the state can get hold of this facility. August 31 has been dedicated as the timeline for the completion of work on this facility. For Joy Sports, I am Muftau Nabila Abdullahi.
And that's it for sports. World News is up next.
Good afternoon, it's me again, Kadi on your screens, and this is the showbiz segment right here on JN Today. Now, to my very first story, dancehall artist Samini is unhappy over a Shatta Wale and Stonebwoy schedule clash, and he's saying that if there's ever going to be a beef, it should be between himself and Shatta. Watch this.
Everybody has witnessed from the beginning of my career and from when I started getting. Everybody has witnessed from the beginning of my career and from when I started getting attacks and beefs from my biggest rival, Bandana. Now, since 2006 or even earlier, this man has dissed and sent different songs towards my direction, most of it direct disrespect that I decided to just allow until that time where 2013, 2014, I thought, let's face this, let's deal with this, because enough of the misinformation of the youth, enough of the miseducation of the youth about me because I don't talk. Long story short, we've done this beef, we've come to a conclusion at the stadium on different occasions where we've tried to, see who is who. Ghana came together, Ghana came out and thought that I was going to get slaughtered that night, and guess what? The next morning, the verdict came out on the front page of the graphic showbiz, and it was to most of the noisemakers' shock, but the truth was out that you can't take me out. In these times, you people are trying to tell me that you would watch Shatta Wale go and clash my son, Stonebwoy, who Shatta Wale started to diss and beef with simply because he was my artist. So anything that's coming from Samini's camp, for that matter, was not good or was not, basically. So, they had to beef. That's been going on. It's been going on. But the real beef started from myself, where he brought it to me, and I had to deal with it as constructive as I could for the longest time, so that I don't fall for the muds while trying to pay attention to what was going on down there. End of the day, he came in 2020 on Showbiz, the entertainment show with Nana McBrown and the rest of the panelists, and came and made a confession that everything he said about me was just jokes and it was a lie.